Welcome to the Health Ranger Report, another special report on sustainability, in this case permaculture. Many people don't know what permaculture is, but I know a lot of you do, so I'm not going to cover all the basics, but just briefly, permaculture is a system of agriculture that is sustainable. It's really that simple. You can use it permanently, forever, generation after generation. And it stands in contrast to conventional mechanized agriculture, which is really, it shouldn't even be called agriculture. It's more like a mining operation to take minerals out of the ground and put them into foods and export those off the land, leaving the land depleted of everything except nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, NPK, which is what's put back in through fertilizers, but you're ripping all the other minerals out of the soil, plus then you're poisoning the soil with glyphosate, which is Roundup, the Monsanto herbicide, and you're poisoning the soil with 2,4-D and other herbicides, and of course pesticides as well. Conventional agriculture really is a poison-based mineral mining operation disguised as food that's mostly lacking in the nutrition that we really need to be sustainable. Permaculture, on the other hand, is a mineral-rich cycle of life that is diverse. It's not monocropped, it's diverse. So you have food forest concepts, for example, different kinds of plants, different kinds of trees and bushes at every level of the forest. You have the high-level producers that are taller than the low-level ground producers. And because of this, in permaculture, you don't get the epidemics of disease that can really just burn through monoculture. Like if you look at the orange crops, the citrus crops in Florida today, they're being devastated by, what is it? Is it a pest or is it a fungi or a virus? I don't remember in this specific case of the oranges, but it's one of those three. And pests and fungi and viruses are all really, they love monoculture. They love it when they have a whole field of all the same crop. They can just eat through that or invade that or infest that very easily. But when you have a diverse food production system, i.e. a food forest or a permaculture system, then you have something that is disease resistant at many levels. Not only is it disease resistant just in terms of the diversity of plants and food there, but it also has its own soil probiotics that are alive and thriving. And because it has the probiotics, it displaces bad bacteria and bad viral invaders, if you will. It's just like in your gut, when you have healthy probiotics in your digestive tract, you are displacing the bad bacteria that can cause sickness and disease. So the same thing's true in soil. If you have soil that's healthy and full of life, then you have soil with a healthy immune system, soil with healthy digestion, if you will. It's decomposing the carbon mass of the food forest, and it's recreating soil and recycling the minerals in all the forms of life that grow in that forest. So permaculture is really a system of sustainable food production that is environmentally sustainable, conscious, environmentally friendly at every level. So if you want to learn more about this, I encourage you to check out a new summit that's airing on November 1st called The Search for Sustainability. You can register for it now at naturalnews.com/sustainability. Again, that URL is naturalnews.com/sustainability. And if that doesn't come up, try the other slash. Yeah, it's the /, it's the /. No, it's the URL, it's the slash that you find in web addresses. So it's a standard slash. In any case, back to permaculture. So my experience with permaculture is quite extensive. I lived in Ecuador for 2 years, and I really immersed myself in the culture there. I had a driver's license that you can only get if you take the test in Espanol, of course, and I had a permanent residency permit, and I owned about 20 acres of land, and we built a food forest there with hundreds and hundreds of native trees. We grew everything from avocados to papaya and all kinds of even native local plants. We had this one root plant. Now I don't recall the name of it, but we were always making soup out of that root. It was really great, really amazing. We raised chickens there, and we had a bamboo forest, and we used the bamboo for various projects, which is also part of permaculture, using local resources and local materials. And so we built an amazing food production system, and at one point I was eating, I believe it was 70% of my diet off the land, 70%. And I haven't been able to get back to that number yet because I've really been just too busy in Texas ever since. But I proved that in the right climate and using principles of permaculture, you could actually grow the vast majority of your diet on your land. And it was a very energy efficient production system. Now, of course, we had the advantage of a never-ending springtime climate, very rich soils, and water that was very close to the surface. You only had to drill down about 20 feet, and you had fresh water in a well. So it had a lot of advantages, and I understand that those advantages don't exist everywhere, but it's the principle that matters. So once I learned those things, I moved to Texas, and then I began to implement those same practices in Texas. And then I invented the Food Rising Grow Box system, which is, you can find it at foodrising.org, by the way. And there's a new version coming out soon, too, that's even better. But the Food Rising system uses containers with no soil, no electricity, no pumps. It's what's called a non-circulating hydroponics technology. I'm not the original inventor of the NCH technology, but I did invent this version of it, which uses an automatic float valve that you can print on a 3D printer, or you can buy it commercially at Amazon.com. And I posted the 3D printing designs that you can download and print yourself for free. Well, you can download them for free and print them on your 3D printer. And you buy the materials, of course, to print them on your 3D printer, like buying ink for an inkjet printer. Nevertheless, in Texas now, I've been able to grow a lot of my own diet, not as much as 70%, but I have been able to successfully produce a lot of food here, and I've gotten way better at many elements of this, including water retention. Now, water retention is a crucial element of permaculture. In monoculture systems, the water that rains down on the land just runs off the land and is gone very quickly. In permaculture, you build a system of canals and swells and you build them along the ley lines, in other words, along the elevation lines, so that they trap water uphill. They retain water. And so instead of all the water running downhill, it actually gets retained. And you'll find that even in a near-desert environment, this can give amazing life to an area that you thought could not support life at all. And so even in places like Arizona, New Mexico, and Southern California, by using these concepts, you could capture water, and you can practice permaculture, and you can grow food in ways that you probably never thought possible. And you can do that with a relatively simple machine called an excavator. Yeah, you burn some diesel fuel while you're doing it, but that's a one-time thing. Once you build the canals and the swells, which is really ditches and swells, it's done. And it will capture water for the next 100 years. And then you can plant on the opposite side of the swell, typically is what you want to do, and you can plant all kinds of things there, or you can just allow the system to grow on its own and then wait till it gets more mature and then kind of take it over with your own plants. So that's one of the things that we learn and practice in permaculture is intelligent water retention combined with nurturing the soils, nurturing the microbial life instead of poisoning it with chemicals. We would add amendments to it that might be minerals or animal feces, for example. And my favorite is goat poo, because it's so clean to work with in terms of being a really high nitrogen fertilizer that the plants absolutely love. There's nothing better than goat poo. Let me tell you, it's the best fertilizer out there. It's just much easier to deal with. It's pelletized. It's automatically pelletized. Goats are like little pellet-making machines running around chomping leaves and grass and producing a stream of pellets. Sometimes at the same time. They can chew and poo all at the same time. Little fertilizer makers. They're great. And I have Nigerian dwarf goats, by the way, and they are really amazing fertilizer makers. And I have some indoor banana plants that just love the goat poo fertilizer. It's fantastic. If you're laughing, don't forget that permaculture does use animals in the cycle, but the animals are not killed for their material, right? So you might be a vegan and you still own animals because you want to grow food very well. And what an animal does is it concentrates. Well, some people have said even they concentrate sunlight into plants, into poo. You know, it's like concentrated. That seems like a stretch to me, but it is concentrated nutrients, and especially nitrogen. And if you have the right goats, by the way, the Nigerian dwarf goats that I have, they are really great at eating leaves. So whenever there's a tree branch that falls, after a storm, for example, there might be a tree that falls over or a branch that falls off. I take the goats over there, they just munch, and they munch all the leaves off of that tree. And then they sit around and digest it for 6 hours, and then they produce massive nitrogen poo that was tree leaves. And see, they've done the composting for me. You see what I mean? In 6 hours, what would take me 6 months and a lot of raking and composting, the goats have done it in 6 hours. So they're like amazing concentrated compost machines. And to some extent, chickens are too, but chickens are a lot messier, not nearly as nice, and they don't really want you to pet them that much. Whereas the goats like to be scratched on their hind ends, just kind of scratched on the side of their butt, and they just love that. Yeah, and they're really friendly and easy to deal with. Anyway, enough on the goats. If you want to learn more about sustainability, go to naturalnews.com/sustainability. Just put that URL in your browser, and you will have a registration page for the Search for Sustainability Summit. I'm interviewed in it, as well as many others like Marjorie Wildcraft. And Marjorie, by the way, also lives, I believe, somewhere in Texas, and she has a farm that is where she does a lot of her own homegrown foods. And she's an expert on producing your own garden and, to some extent, your own homegrown medicines as well. And I dabble in the medicine side as well. I do grow medicinal herbs. And I had planned to set up a distillation system, but I just haven't had time to do that yet, although I already have the hardware. You can, if you master these techniques, you can really grow a significant percentage of your own diet, and you can also grow a lot of your own medicines, like holy basil and even oregano, rosemary, thyme, various mints, and many other medicinal herbs that are extremely useful in a survival situation or a preparedness or a collapse scenario. If you have these basic skills and understand the cycle of life in permaculture, you will be growing food at the same time you're growing medicine. Also at the same time that you're growing insect repellent plants that keep the insect load lower on your entire food forest system. The key to all this is really the water. You have to start with the water. You have to understand how water is retained, how water is lost, how to move water around, use gravity systems, use solar-powered pumps, use rainwater collection. These are some of the basic pillars of permaculture. And these are some of the things that I practice, and these are some of the things that you will learn in that Search for Sustainability Summit. And the URL, once again, is naturalnews.com/sustainability. So there's a lot you can learn, and there may be a time when you really thank yourself for learning these skills. You know, right now in Venezuela, the socialist economy is on the verge of collapse. And that's because socialism doesn't work, by the way, for those of you who are economists out there. Centrally planned economies always fail, but usually not until the government turns into a police state and oppresses its people, and then it fails. So it's never a good scene when you're standing in line for 6 hours to try to buy a head of cabbage. So the real heroes in Venezuela right now are people who grow their own food. And to some extent, people who have stored some food too. So preparedness has a role in this. But If you can grow your own food in Venezuela right now, you're king. You're the king. You can barter food for anything. Seriously, you can barter food for medicine, insulin, painkillers, antibiotics, gold and silver. You can barter food for firearms, ammunition, emergency communications, radios, housing. You can barter food. You can pay rent with food in an economy like that. People are starving. People are hungry. People are out of options because their government sucks. Socialism sucks and collapses eventually. And you're left penniless. That's the cycle of history over and over again. I don't know why people keep making the same mistake, Bernie Sanders. So, let's not go down that same path. Instead, let's practice some permaculture, learn how to grow your own food. So in case all the other voters elect a socialist to be president and then your economy collapses, well, you're not going to find yourself standing in a food line. You can actually grow some of your own food. And when your hospital runs out of medicine, you have some alternative possible replacements in the form of medicinal herbs that you've grown yourself. So I'm not saying you can grow like insulin or anything like that, but there are many things that you can do with essential oils and medicinal herbs, and it's great to have the option, even though it's not 100% replacement for, let's say, an emergency room or antibiotics. Nevertheless, there are a lot of antibiotic medicinal plants that you can grow. Anyway, wrapping this up, the point is permaculture works. It works better than the GMO system of agriculture, Monsanto, and all the evil agricultural imperialism and poisoning of the soils, a system that is just basically based on greed and death and destruction and patent trolls and threatening farmers. I mean, do you really want your food to come from a system of hatred like that? Evil corporations, evil seeds. Yeah, have an evil hamburger bun. And with an evil hamburger patty ripped from the flesh of a cow that ate evil grain seeds from Monsanto. It's like Halloween on your plate, Do you really want that system? No, you want a system really of love. I mean, I don't want to sound hippy-dippy, but, if you love nature, if you love plants, if you love the soil, if you love rain falling on your face and just fresh water and the cool night breeze, and you love the cycles of the moon and the sun, and you love life, then you got to be into permaculture. Why would you want to eat food that comes from a system of death and destruction, which is mechanized agriculture, corporate agriculture, when instead you could be eating food that's full of love and life and sunlight because it's based on the cycle of life that is sustainable, that is called permaculture. You see, if you love life, then you got to learn about permaculture. And that is automatically sustainable. So last time I'm giving out the URL, naturalnews.com/sustainability. Go there now, register for the summit, and enjoy what you're going to learn there. I have a segment there as well as many, many other people. Over a dozen people are interviewed there for the segment. You're going to learn a wealth of information. And whether you use it now or use it later, it's going to be that ace up your sleeve. It's going to be that knowledge base that you can use whenever you need it. If circumstances change down the road, or if you can use it now, it's some knowledge that can help sustain you for the rest of your life. So thanks for listening. This is Mike Adams, the Health Ranger, for naturalnews.com.